Thank you for joining us for our continued programming as part of our FSEA online learning experience. My name is Jeff Peterson, Executive Director of FSEA. Our next presentation is one of our virtual workshops entitled Working Through Challenges with Today's Paper Stocks and Coatings. We have a great panel today with diverse backgrounds and a lot of experience. I'd like to introduce Sean Hurley with MCD Inc., a prominent print finisher from Madison, Wisconsin. Dave Leyrer with SunDance, who provides a variety of services from print to finishing to decorating from Orlando, Florida. Derrick Unger with BOBST, who is BOBST specialist for hot stamping special processes. And Faddis with UEI Group, a leading supplier of both dies and foils through Universal Engraving and Infinity Foils. I want to welcome all of our panelists today. I think we will dive right into some specific questions, and each one of them will take time to answer those. Although this program is pre-recorded, please feel free to send me emails with questions after it's over, and I can pass those on to the appropriate panel member. So let's get started. First question here, what types of paper stocks are coming to the market that are new or haven't typically been used for print decorating, possibly in the past? Sean, I'll start with you. Can you provide us some information in that area?
So, Jeff, some of the one new paper stock that we've seen is the diamond print glitter, and we've done stamping and embossing, and it's a very unique stock. It presented some challenges, and we definitely learned along the way. We've seen kind of a reintroduction of some of the micro flutes that are out there, where we've been challenged to stamp on lightweight corrugated. We continue to see digitally printed stocks as printers work in that area, and that continues to be a challenge. And then we've also recently seen some packaging work where we're actually hot stamping on cold foil and overprinting from packaging printers. So that's been fairly new.
So you're saying where they're overprinting 4-color process on the cold foil, and then you're coming back with another pass of foil on top of that.
That's correct. We're hot stamping after the fact, and the hot stamping is clearly brighter. It offers a unique, if you want to accent something, it's kind of a unique look. So that's been fairly new and fairly well received.
Cool. Is there any challenges that's provided, or I mean, it's something new you've seen? Does it create any additional challenges? I'm guessing you just need to make sure the foil is over stampable, those types of things.
Well, it does present some challenges because really the cold foil process, because they're printing in line over the foil, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that's planned to be hot stamped. So there were some challenges, just like there are with any printed material, in just getting the right foil and understanding what coatings they're using. So again, working through that and communicating and working with coating suppliers and foil suppliers is key to anything in terms of learning and moving forward.
Great. Dave from SunDance, anything that you're seeing out there that's been a new challenge for you, or something new from a paper stock standpoint?
Yeah, on the paper side, one of the areas that we're seeing like explosive growth is in the the cannabis and the cannabis packaging and everything. So Mohawk has recently come out with their renewal product, which is actually like 30% hemp, and we see a lot of interest in that with the CBD and cannabis industry. And they also have a straw and a cotton fiber paper included in that offering. This is pretty good for foil stamping and die cutting. Of course, it's an uncoated stock, so if you're going to do any coating or laminating first, but just a new item that we're seeing a lot of.
Does it accept like the coating and so forth? It is an uncoated stock. Is it accepting coatings and laminates? That's been a fairly easy to work with.
Yeah, we haven't done a lot of coating directly on the stock. Again, we usually pre-laminate before we apply any UV coatings or anything like that. You know, it does accept foil well, die cuts well, but when it comes to the coatings, we're laminating prior to applying the coatings.
Interesting. Great. Derrick, I might ask you're out there in the field a little bit and see some of the applications, anything that you're seeing different or that's been a challenge, a recent challenge as it comes to paper stocks?
Not so much, because the diversity of where my job takes me. I'm from folded carton to everything else, under the books, within our machines. So I can't say that there's anything that's tremendously standing out, other than just some of the same old recycling issues, that we're having. But that's across the board, I think everyone's feeling some of that.
So have you seen possibly a little more, sustainability was really a big deal, seemed to have died down a little bit, but in recent months, it's really come back to be, even more important again, I think, to a lot of end users or companies. Have you seen that recycled stocks have even, that you're dealing with even more of those, recently or in the last few months?
I can't say that it's anything abnormal. It's more so just on occasion, you come across the job here or there. Depending on the coverage of the hot stamping, is it small typed? That's normally not a problem. Larger areas with denser stocks, really large paneled areas. This is where it can become troublesome.
Right.
And balancing pressure clear across the die, from the make-ready spot-up sheet itself.
Yeah. Great. From your standpoint, have you heard from customers that are having any challenges with some specific stocks or, that has caused them, that have to make changes or adjustments?
It's more or less the coatings of the substrates that we really run into. When print finisher receives in from the printer something that Sean, you can probably attest to this. Sometimes you're like, wait, this has a coating. I didn't quote this with a coating, or I didn't, this wasn't told this was going to be a coating. So that presents a new curveball to us when a plan set forth to stamp a foil on a virgin or an uncoated substrate is out the window. Now you have to figure out what foil works best for that particular coating. A lot of coating suppliers are now coming out with foil stampable coatings, which has been helpful, but still there's going to be some unique aspects with the different varieties of releases of foil that are available across our industry. Some are better served than others, and that also goes into the ability for the type of coverage. Like Derrick was just saying, fine line detail type is great. Very, most people have no issues with it, but then you get into the large panel and then it's on a coated sheet, which is, creating that air entrapment issue. So that's more of where we have come into that more issues are coming up in that realm. So what we encourage our customers to do is send us sheets, or we can supply samples of foils for that different testing. And we've also worked with paper suppliers to send us new developmental products that they send out before they hit the market. So we do that with numerous foil paper suppliers to give them, hey, this product works best for this product works best for that, and gives hopefully the end customer a better leg forward or step forward in giving the end customer a successful product.
Great, thanks. Let's move on. The next question here. Have there been any recent trends in coatings, and Greg has kind of talked about that have caused very specific challenges with foil or even digital foil? Sean, have you seen anything with jobs that have come in with specific types of coatings? Any changes there? That has caused challenges for accepting foil or even working with coatings from your end?
Yes, and I mean to go along with what Greg was saying, it is we've definitely seen challenges. A lot of soft touch is being done in line, and it has been challenging. It's never the same, and basically in trade finishing, you're always dealing with different printers have different chemistry. You would like to say that soft touch is soft touch, but that's not necessarily the case. We've seen challenges with textured coatings. Actually, a number of the inline coatings have been challenging for us. We benefit by the fact that we do offline UV coating, so that's helpful because we understand the coating side as well, and that helps us with challenging jobs. I would also add that again, the digital world is also challenging because you're dealing with again things that foil doesn't like to necessarily stick to, so that a lot of times you are testing and doing working back and forth to find something that's going to work.
Now, Sean, do you find that, from the digital, I mean, this could be a question that goes along the lines here, Dave as well, for sure, but do you find that a lot of the digital printed material, is it coated in line sometimes, or a lot of times coated offline, or how does that work usually when jobs come in?
Well, I think that we see it, and from what I understand, it's done inline. Now, I'm sure there are some digital printers that are using an offline process as well. But typically, I think when we receive it, it's sometimes we know, sometimes we don't know, and that's where the communication part really helps to ask those questions and recommend testing. If you're working with somebody a fair amount, you can, talk to them and go back to a job that might have been, they might have used a similar coating and recommend that. So it's kind of a ongoing challenge, and it's something that because everybody, well, I should say everybody, but many of our customers, again, are doing things differently and trying to find new things to sell their clients. It's an ongoing challenge, but it's also interesting to see what can be done.
Dave, is there certain things you've seen from a coding standpoint for jobs that has created challenges for you?
Yeah, I think these guys already mentioned, we tend to continue to see a ton of interest in soft touch coating and laminates. Everybody seems to just love the soft touch, which is great, but it can be pretty challenging to foil stamp on, whether it's laminate or coating. It seems like we'll use the same coating on one job and it works beautifully, and 3 days later we'll coat another job with the same coating and we have issues. And so it's daunting to try to figure out exactly what the right combinations are. We actually do a lot of laminating, so we see a lot of our products are going, from the press or the digital press to the laminator, and then in turn being coated either on the MGI, the flood coater. We have a little offline spot coater as well. And what we've seen is that I think one of the guys mentioned that the coatings suppliers are coming out with some coatings that are a little more friendly for foil stamping, and we're seeing that in the laminates as well. We're seeing laminates with a higher dine level, and it allows for better receptivity on coating and on foiling. So that's been a big advantage being able to get the laminates that are better engineered to receive those coatings.
And that runs across, normal film lamination. The soft touch laminates have become better for foil stamping as well.
Yeah, the soft touch in particular has become much, much better. There's, I imagine, I don't know if I'm supposed to mention vendors or not, but we have one vendor that has come out with the Soft Touch Plus, and it is wonderful for applying coatings and also foil.
Who's that manufacturer?
That's coming from DeProsa Specialty Films, or Tagleaf. Yep.
Gotcha. No,
Yep.
I think that's good information for our listeners to know, that especially those involved with foil, that there's a good laminate out there that accepts the foil well. So
Absolutely.
okay, great.
Yes, it has like a 46 dyne level, and that really, really helps in receiving other treatments on top. So.
Right. And as you said, and I had not mentioned this, but Dave's company at SunDance does do some digital decorating. I know has a MGI for spot digital coatings and so forth. So I'm guessing it helps with those types of applications too then.
Yes, it does. Indeed.
Great.
Yes.
Derrick, I might ask you, soft touch seems to be a big issue, certainly a very popular process, either if it's coatings or laminate. Have you seen that? Is there anything that has created any challenges you've seen on, like especially on the larger platen presses like a BOBST, as far as soft touch?
Well, Jeff, I have to say the first time that I ever ran into soft touch, it was not laminates. It blew my mind because it felt 100% exactly the same as the lamination. So having had some experience with the lamination side of it, not so much. And this is before my employment with BOBST years ago. But as far as the coating aspect goes, along with UV coating, overstampable UV coating, what I typically see most is the cross-contamination issue that arrives. My encouragement across the board for all coatings companies, regardless of soft touch or overstampable, UV, my encouragement would be for all coatings companies and all printing press manufacturers to integrate within this matter and create within some sense, a training course, a service that they can provide their customers and directly related to this crossover and change out of coatings to prevent the cross-contamination.
So what you're saying, Derrick, is happening a lot is let's say they have a job, they need the overstampable coating because they know it's going to foil, but the job before was running a more standard UV, and so then when they put in the overstampable UV, they're not cleaning it out, so there's a crossover from both types of coatings when it goes on the next job. Is that the type of challenge you see happening sometimes?
Correct. Generally, when I have a customer telling me, no, this is overstampable UV.
Right.
It always comes back to the operators and changing out the coatings, because there is a cleaning process which I am not exactly familiar with. That's why I'm encouraging both the coating companies and printing press manufacturers to perhaps integrate and create a training course, because every printing press is a little bit different than the others. So that's why I'm making it specific and kind of really aiming this back towards printing press manufacturers so that they themselves can create a sellable service for a good cause.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Derrick. I've been around this a long time. I'm maybe some of you other guys have heard that, but I haven't heard a lot of that about making sure that there isn't that cross contamination from one, when you're changing out coatings and so forth. So I think that's an excellent point. Greg, from your side, I think you've kind of talked about this already, that's one of the areas where you see probably the most challenges has been with different types of coatings. Has that kind of, we've kind of gotten into the soft touch discussion. Is that something specific you've seen some challenges from soft touch, or maybe digital, coatings that are going over digital work before they're, foil stamped or embossed?
Yeah, it is. One of the things that we've implemented here is we utilize a dine pin. Dave had mentioned this earlier in our call, and in a dine pin, it's something that's a useful tool that I have with me. Most of my team have with them as well, and it's important for when people are trying to figure out what is foil stampable and what does accept ink on top of foil. There's two different levels that are required. So at the minimum level to accept foil that we have found is a level 38. And these dine pins, if you can go online and do a search for a Dyne, D-Y-N-E, surface energy testing pen, and that'll allow you to be able to purchase your own and bring them in-house. And it's important because then you know what coatings will accept foil or won't accept foil. We've had some people who've had success using foils from us on a UV coating, which everyone has always said, UV coating is impossible to stamp. So sometimes it's successful. Then we have some people who are like, oh, this is a stampable UV. And as Derrick said, that cross-contamination happens where they didn't probably completely clean it out. So then it becomes, they get a shark tooth typed image where it stamps on some areas but not on all areas. So it's getting those things taken care of. And the first step is checking to make sure that substrate, that coating will accept foil with a dine pin. And that's been a big problem solver for a lot of our customers to say, yeah, I'm not going to waste time by stamping this because it fails below the dine level that I need it to be.
Good points, yes. Yeah, I'm familiar with the dine pins and know those can be very, very useful. Excellent. We'll move on. Move on to the next question here. Sorry, guys, I'm having a little. There we go. The next question here is, how do you feel about jobs that require you to add foil on top of coatings? Now, we've kind of already gone through some of that. When you're foiling over UV, again, that cross-contamination seems to be, a real problem. Is there other things, Dave, I might start with you. Is there other things or possibly even some tricks or tips you might have when you know that foil is going to go over a UV coating, some things that you guys suggest or you make sure you do a lot about, you're doing part of it, a lot of this in-house from the beginning to the end. Is there some steps that you guys take with coatings, especially UV, that may be having, have foil on it as well?
Well, I would say, first off, we always start with testing everything, and the dine test is critical in everything, testing the surface of the material, careful selection of the coating. You want to work really closely with your coating manufacturers, with your paper manufacturers, and make sure you're using products that are compatible with each other. And also, we'll throw a shout out to Greg over there at UEI. We work real close with those guys, and they're wonderful about making sure that they're providing foils that work with the coatings and the products that we're using. So, keep in close communication with your suppliers and your vendors. And, then there's always still a lot of testing involved at the final stage in production. And, keep really good notes on your testing and everything to be very useful, on future jobs. So.
Great. Derrick, I might ask you, we all know that, you can have the best intentions that the job's going to come in and it's going to either be a stampable UV or the job comes in and you didn't know. Sean and Dave, I'm sure, see this a lot. A job shows up at the back dock and it has a coating on it. Nobody told them that it was going to, and the sheets are done. Is there some tips that you might have when you know a sheet has been coated, UV coated, and and to try to save it that you can add, when foil is going to be added to it? Is there some specific tips through your experience that you try or suggest to your customers to try?
Well, I guess typically when it's not working, because you're trying anyhow, you normally turn to look at the wall of foil that you've saved over the years and hoping you find the needle in a haystack, which never happens. But unfortunately, that's, not real time, and it doesn't work that way. As far as some coatings and the surface tension and breaking that surface tension is the good old 400 grit sandpaper, and in order to save the job, yeah, you have to run it twice, but many times that does work.
So in that, Derrick, when you're talking about that, you with that type of process, and I've heard about that. So you actually put a piece of sandpaper over the dye area. Is that correct? And then you would run the sheets through.
Correct.
With that sandpaper over each of the dyes, run it through to break up that coating, and then you would run those sheets back through, of course, to add the foil. As you said, it would add a whole run on your press. But that is one potential way of saving the job, correct?
Correct.
Gotcha.
And that works on different coating as well.
Gotcha. Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a great recommendation. Greg, do you guys have any very, very specific recommendations? Of course, I know you have to try the best formulation for stamping over coatings, but other things that you guys suggest when they're trying to save the job and maybe it's already been coated?
There's a couple options. Now we are the exclusive distributor of Nakai foils, and they produce a AM is what they call. We recoined it to MAM, so it's like yes ma'am. But that is one of the best foils to stamp on UV coatings. So if someone says UV coatings, our answer is MAM, and the majority of time it is successful. The other option that people can look into is they can get a corona treatment, and that's more common in the label industry than it is for sheet fed. And usually some people have a corona treatment tower in their press. And what this allows is, as Derrick said, the puncturing or the fracturing of the coating and creating surface energy to create pores in that coating to allow the foil to stick. That's the other option that a lot of people either have access to or don't have access to. So it's something that, work in your region and figure that out. And it's just a corona treatment application. So it's, definitely more common in the label industry, but it can be applied in the sheet fed industry as well.
John, have you ever dealt with that situation of looking into corona treating, or have corona treated sheets that have come in and they're already UV coated and trying to save it that you can add the foil later?
Yes, when we see a job that the dyne level is low, and we'll see jobs where the dyne level is down at 32. What we're really trying to do is bring that dyne level up so we can get foil to stick. So we do corona treating. We also might try to flash sheets just to again get that surface energy to change. Now, with that being said, we also stamp over the top of a fair amount of UV coating on a regular basis, and we do that just by planning and really understanding the coatings that there are UV coatings out there that if things are done correctly in the printing process, in other words, no contamination and a very good job cleaning, you know, I think that when that is done, we can successfully stamp over UV, and we do not have to go to a product like Nakai. If we are in a position where we find that the dye level is very low to start, and we know the wrong UV was used, we will definitely look at Nakai. We will look at, you know, Corona treating. We might do something with a sandpaper pass. Those are all the things that you start to troubleshoot on press, and unfortunately, that's pretty late in the game. So that can be challenging.
So is the Corona treater, is that a separate piece of equipment, Sean, that the sheets go through to be treated, you know, before you put them back on press?
Yeah,
to break up that surface tension.
Yes, it is. It's something where we run it on our UV coating line, so
Gotcha.
we have the ability to turn it on and use it. So it is a separate pass.
Gotcha. All right. Great. Okay, let's move on. Are there any characteristics of paper stocks you recommend staying away from when you're involved with foil embossing? And this could even fall into digital foiling or digital coating, Dave, as well. Greg, I might start with you. Is there certain things that, you know, when you're talking to customers and they may have a new job, you say, hey, you know, you guys might really shy away from this type of stock because you might be setting yourself up for problems?
Typically what we suggest, because sometimes we're not privy to that specific stock, what we suggest in-house is what we call a fold test of the substrate. And basically it's just taking the corner of the substrate, folding it against itself, and letting it fall back. If it falls past 90-degree angle, trying to get back to its original state, it's something that will not hold embossed. The memory is gone. It's a very short memory. So anything that stays closer to where you folded it to, closer past the 90-degree angle, that's going to be a substrate that will accept embossing very well. So leather is a material that is more or less burnished. So your materials that are very similar try to mimic a leather. People try to emboss, and it always becomes dull or washed out. So we don't recommend that. We then suggest them to burnish, which is almost brand that material itself. As far as foil stamping, I mean, I sell foil, I sell dye, so I'm always going to recommend people to try to foil stamp. But it is one of those things where it has to be tested. It's, you know, there's some substrates that people have considered not stampable that with the right environment can be foil stamped. So it's more of a testing aspect on that side of it.
Does anything come to mind specifically, Greg, that, you know, in its main, you know, that you would, you know, say, oh, that may become a real challenge, that, you know, kind of a type of stock or specific stock?
In foil stamping, it also depends on the look. So if you have a cotton substrate, it's very soft, very airy. And so when you stamp that, or any textured substrate, you're trying to get a level foil stamp. So anything that's got a lot of hills and valleys in the substrate itself, I would try and stay away from, only for the fact that you're not going to get a consistent look. The higher portions are going to look great. The lower portion, once you run your finger over and scratch it, the foil is going to come off because it's not completely foil stamped in the valley or the low part of that substrate. So those types of things that don't give off that same consistent look because I know when you stamp cotton substrates, it gets a dull, mad look in some areas, but not all areas.
Gotcha. Derrick, anything you have to add to that on paper stocks that you usually tell your customers or operators you work with that, this type of stock you may want to stay away from, that's going to cause trouble, it's going to cause challenges?
Well, in reference to these valleys, substrates like tomahawk and mohawk, these are the, that and other linens and such. And I've ran into that, yes, with it being inconsistent. And really you have to smash this pretty hard, to bring top layer to a flat level, because it is flat stamping, which sets flat stamping apart from cold foil, because it's not a true flat stamp. You still get to see that texture in the sheet. Other issues do with paper is the environment that the jobs are being ran in. With the relative humidity, which starts at the pulp factory, and depending on transport, where the rolls of paper are being stored, sheeted, are you sheeting it? This condition of the stock, and of course in-house climate control, if any, many times, most times, that is not a thing. It's mostly your bigger corporations and such that have that type of environment. But to control the environments within a printing facility, period, it brings more consistency across the board for all processes involved.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Derrick. I certainly have heard that too, that, keeping the stock in a constant type of environment is always positive. Dave, from your standpoint, anything that you guys, there at SunDance say, hey, we need to stay away from this type of stock, or maybe a very specific type of stock when you're working with decorating with foil and embossing and so forth?
Yeah, Jeff, every time somebody hands me a stock that feels velvety, like soft touch, I kind of shiver a little bit. We've had a couple of bad experiences on a couple of stocks. It just, again, it has to do with, planning and making sure you're getting the right thing for the right job. Nina Touche can be really, really challenging. You can't really foil stamp with a combo die or anything, try to foil emboss on that. It really doesn't work, but you can flat stamp it and then emboss it, and it works beautifully. Had a job on a CM La Creme, and had real challenges getting foil to lay down on it, and we thought it did pretty good. Once we finally got it working, 3 months later, we looked at the job and the foil had bled out. The pigment had bled out into the material. So, they kind of didn't see that one coming. But some of the soft materials, there could be some wicking of, some of the pigments and everything. So that was kind of an odd problem. But again, it seems to be stocks that have that velvety feel. They just have they're softer and more pliable. They have some other issues,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Touche. I've had several of our FSCA members, either on our FSCA help links and so forth, say, they've had some challenges with that. So I think that's all, as you said, it may not be impossible to work with, but I think it's a question mark should come up when maybe you see a job with Touche, and make sure you do. I think a recommendation, which I think you guys would all recommend, is always do testing before you say, hey, yeah, send the job over, no problem. Sean, anything else that you would that you have to add to that on stocks that you guys try to just avoid or not work with unless you absolutely have to?
Well, we try to look at it a little bit differently in terms of, sometimes when somebody wants a designer wants something specific, it's not necessarily that we want to stay away from it. It's more or less, can we plan and can we price it accordingly? And that comes down to having the experience of dealing with different stocks. So as Dave said, Touche is a tough stock. Another stock like Touche is Plike, and they're very expensive stocks. They can be challenging. There are we've seen some of the translucent stocks, like a Glama, for example, can be a tough stock regarding embossing and stamping, for that matter. Another one is Crane Letra. And another stock that just comes to mind, has been around for a while, I'm not sure if it's even made anymore, is Classic Columns. Was very challenging to figure out. So there's a number of them out there that are very designers get excited about the stocks, but when you're dealing with especially new stocks, a lot of times if you're dealing with heavy textures or depending on the design, real fine stamping, depending on the emboss design, you can run into a lot of scenarios that require testing. And once you get that experience, you're not necessarily, you kind of have a plan for the next time you hear about that stock.
Great, thanks. Okay, any other recommendations you have on challenging stocks? If there's anything else that comes to mind, Dave, I might start with you. Anything else that you're dealing with, maybe from the digital standpoint, that you've ran into in the last few months with challenges on either the stock or the coatings when adding foil, or a combination of all of them. Anything that comes to mind that you would recommend from a stock or coating standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can say it's specifically digital, but there's a kind of a series of things, and some of these things are going to be a repeat of what has already been spoken here. But, the one thing is, condition your material. Make sure that your material, whatever you're running, it didn't just come out of a truck from Michigan into a 100-degree warehouse in Florida and then straight to the press, You want to make sure that material has time to acclimate. A roll of paper, for example, or sealed boxes, it can take some time for it to kind of achieve a balance with the environment and everything. The other thing is, once you do make it to press, we see it all the time. We're in a instant gratification society. Everybody wants everything right away. So we're pushing jobs right from the paper truck to the press and then right on to foil stamping as soon as it's dry enough to touch, and those all present a lot of problems, for us, as you're trying to stamp onto wet ink is difficult. Trying to stamp over, things that are not fully cured, or to apply a laminate or a coating to something that hasn't properly cured is just fraught with peril. The other thing, I'll go back, I know it's a repeat of something I've said, is look at your manufacturer's recommendations. Talk to your suppliers, starting with the paper and then right on through with every other supplier of material or coating or anything that you're using. They have a wealth of knowledge. They have experience in using their products on different substrates, and they can just save you so much time, by going and talking to them or looking online for data sheets and things that might explain, different production techniques and everything. And then fourthly, when you're at that final stage, it's in the shop, you've got everything and you're committed, keep good records of what you do, because you, again, do not want to have to go back and learn that same lesson 3 months or 6 months down the line on another similar job.
Yeah, Dave, I think that's a great recommendation. Sean, basically, I think you were saying the similar thing when you do get challenging stocks in, that keep records, keep track of what you did before, and that certainly can help you moving forward. Anything else, Sean, you can think of that, from something that may have been of recent times with paper or coatings, from a recommendation standpoint?
Well, I think that, again, this has been said, but I mean, the communication part, with your vendors, the communication with your customers in terms of, we'll see a lot of jobs with heavy ink coverage that are coated. And, again, when something is not dry, understanding the chemistry behind it, the inks and the coatings, and really talking to the customer, because it is definitely, something where turn times are very tight, and a lot of times something isn't necessarily ready to stamp or ready to coat because there just enough time hasn't gone by that the sheet is fully dry. So testing, measuring dime, and really understanding the chemistry of the inks and coatings, and then the communication, I would say, are the keys.
Great. Derrick, anything else to add on that from recommendations on stocks or coatings?
Yeah, I have to agree with Sean there. I mean, to educate your customer that's coming to you with a very critical design that, they're saying that they absolutely have to have this. I mean, if you don't have enough information to give them and explain to them within a way for them to understand and accept the idea that this is probably factual, what this person is telling me, otherwise you could potentially lose that customer. So education on both sides of that fence, I think, is critical, in keeping good business, good jobs running, and less issues on press.
Yep, I think that's a great recommendation. And the problem is when that isn't done and a customer has a bad experience, then they may not use foil or embossing or coating or a specialty coating the next time around. So that's another reason why it's very, very important. Greg, anything else to add to that as far as recommendations on stocks or coatings?
Yeah, I think as Derrick said, the education aspect of with the customer, with using your suppliers to figure this out. We've been supplying make ready and doing make ready for a lot longer than I've been with the company, and there's new make ready techniques out there. So operators are set in their ways. They have maybe I like using phenolic board, or I like using epoxy glass board, or they're a Chevy guy or a Ford guy. They have they're set in their way a little bit. Sometimes coming at it from a different avenue of maybe a new make ready technique is something that we have seen be successful for foiling and embossing with different substrates. I make sure to tell my when I go see customers, and if they do a new press installation and they're just getting into foil stamping, I've been lucky enough to do some make ready training and seminars in their facilities that, like everyone has said so far, keeping record of what you do and how you do it is going to continue to train each operator that comes through that facility, because you're going to have some people that are going to be transitioning and retiring. You're going to have some new guys that are coming in that, they know how to turn their press on, but do they know how the proper way to open up a reverse out on something or do those things? So getting that education there is key, working with, everybody that's available at your fingertips, from suppliers to, vendors and OEMs and everything like that. So.
Great. Thank you, Greg. And agree. Communication is huge. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be part of our panel today. A quick thank you to our wonderful sponsors and supporters of FSCA in our online learning experience: BOBST, Duplo, Kurz, HHS Bomber, H&M, Infinity Foils, Metal Magic, Mueller Pros, Sakurai USA, Univaco, and Universal Engraving. A big thanks to all of them. Thank you to you guys, and we'll say goodbye from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.